Okay. All right. Welcome back to the Bitter to Better podcast. We have again my friend Mattie Clark, who, if you listened a few episodes ago, you would have heard her talking about family constellations, as she is a family constellations facilitator. And when we were talking, we kind of threw out this idea of having some just casual, informal conversations around various topics related to or adjacent to dating, breakups, life management, things like that, relationships, all of that. And so we thought, maybe periodically we'll have Mattie pop in and her and I will just talk and discuss. So we have kind of a loose format here where I have a general topic in mind that was spurred from our last conversation. We're kind of throwing it out there, but it can go off into various other areas. And one of the things is that with Mattie being a family constellations facilitator, I did want her to be able to share about what she's up to right now. And so I'll kind of just pass it over to you, Mattie, a little bit, and then we'll get into conversation.
Awesome. So glad to be back. I'm very excited about this conversation for today. And yeah, just an update on my end that last time we spoke, I had just launched my first cohort for a 90-day group called Rerooted Rebels. And so it does a lot of constellations. And my idea was that usually constellations are like these big one off events, and then it can be challenging to hold the energy that's been cleared and released and integrated. So instead of like one big one that's like, oh my goodness, it's like a bunch of micro cosmic constellations. And so it's going well. And I'm going to start another cohort in October. So that's the update there.
Awesome. And I know we were chatting a little bit before. And so you said you're starting another cohort in October. How long does the program run?
3 months. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So, and
Awesome.
it's almost every week. Um, yeah. And in fact, for this term, so that it ends by the holidays, I think it will be almost every week. Um, yeah, from the beginning of October until middle of December.
Got it. Awesome, awesome. Yeah, we're both kind of on similar trajectories when it comes to this right now of launching things. Because as you were just, what I just thought about, you mentioned trying to get the next cohort finished before the holidays. I was thinking about how I just very informally on my Instagram yesterday talked about, or no, sorry, this morning on my Instagram stories this morning talked about finally launching the Date Better program in January, but how I'm kind of working backwards. So if my goal is for it to start in January, um, then I need to like, what do I need to get in place between now and then?
Yep.
And so, yes, being in that realm of like launching these, and yours, like you said, is over a period of about, I guess, about 10 to 12 weeks.
Yep.
Mine will be like 8 weeks. So just kind of being in the space of having goals to have things happen, but then, having to go backwards and putting in the work. But awesome. So yeah, I mean, we'll love to hear more and or to continue to hear about, the process and how it's all going. So glad to have you back. The topic that I kind of threw out after the last time we spoke was this idea, and I honestly don't remember how it came up, but I remember sending you an email and saying maybe we can, chat about this, which is it might have come up because we at some point I think spoke about agreements, like social contracts, agreements in relationships, right? Which brings me to think about what I call the exclusivity conversation, which is something that people have listened to the podcast and stuff I've mentioned at times. I don't know if I cannot remember. I have to go back and look. I don't know if I've done an actual episode specifically on this, but the exclusivity conversation is one that I say needs to happen between going from casually dating someone to deciding to that you want to exclusively date them, which is to say when you're casually dating them, it means that you were dating other people as well, or you had the option to date other people and go out on dates with other people and all of that. But then you identify maybe there's someone who you do want to focus your time and energy on. So you would then like to date them exclusively, which is still a step before a committed relationship. But the thing here is that a lot of people get what I call exclusive in their heads or prematurely exclusive with someone because they've decided, "Oh yeah, I'm happy to just date this person," but they have not had any conversations or had any or even if they've had attempted conversations, they've gotten no confirmation um, from the other person that that's what they want to do, and that both people's idea of what that means is the same. And so I say you need to have an exclusivity conversation. But I tend to get this is one of the things that I get the most pushback on when I'm working with people and talking with women in particular around dating. And I just think it's an interesting thing and a helpful conversation to have, like thoughts on why people push back, what are our concerns, what all of that good stuff. And then like the results and repercussions of having and not having these conversations and how this all the trickle down effect. So yeah, I just thought it's just interesting discourse because it is one of the areas that I do think is one of the most challenging when I'm working with women. So I don't know. Just figured we'd share thoughts. Do you have any general ideas about this idea?
Yeah. I mean, what comes up from a family constellations perspective is that explicit agreements are required for a strong bond. And the conversation or agreement around exclusivity is really about giving one another to each other fully. And so when you give fully and you agree to do that, you have a strong bond where you can bear life together, either literally like bearing children or just bearing life like in a sense of resilience.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing that comes up is balance. It's like there's societal stuff from, patriarchy and all sorts of other stuff about like what women bring and what men bring. And so when there's fogginess or confusion around this agreement, there's often some kind of imbalance. And so it's, if there's desperation for the commitment on the part of the woman or extreme avoidance on the part of the man, there's that probably speaks to some kind of imbalance of give and take.
Yeah. 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 I mean, that's a really good point, this idea of imbalance, right? Because well, and then also what you said about being able to have this explicit agreement also helps people to kind of bear life together, right? Because what comes to mind for me in that is the idea of trust, right? Like in order to do life together, do things together, have what we would call a healthy relationship, all would agree that trust is a foundational part. And so having some sort of explicit agreement about what the guidelines are, the boundaries are, what each person needs, what they want and don't want, right? Builds trust so that you can feel like you can fully engage with someone. So be vulnerable when you need to be, share when you need to share, support, all of those things, right? And so it's kind of like, and so then when you bring up the imbalance piece, it's like, yeah, if we can't have that conversation, or if we have that conversation and one party is non-committal, like is not upfront, honest, can't say yes or no, then we already have also, think a bit of a foundational trust issue, right? Because you don't exactly know, and people will continue to push forward still without that oftentimes. Like, I just really like the person, and so we're just gonna go with it. But like, there's a foundational like trust issue there. Then when you can't get two people to have a conversation, one, and two, just be really upfront and honest about it. So like, it may not be that both people say yes, we want to be exclusive, but ideally, what you want and what you need is for both people to be very clear about what they're up
Yep.
for and what they're not up for, you know?
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
so yeah, it's just one of the things that, and then in hindsight, in the long game, like I tell, like when I talk with women, I like, most of us have been on the other end of not having this conversation because oftentimes I mean, especially early in your early dating life. So like if someone's in their 20s or things like that, these conversations oftentimes just don't happen because it's a very casual, let's not put a label on it, let's Netflix and chill and fall into or slide into some sort of situationship thing. And there is a time and place for all of that. And I think your 20s is it. It's like figuring that all out, letting it get messy, saying, all right, that's what I don't want to do again. Okay, that's all of that, right? So most of us have been on the other end of this probably multiple times and have felt some of those repercussions where you're still like you're now in some way entangled or committed with someone, whether it's one-sided or both-sided, but you're still also trying to gather an understanding of what of how you guys are supposed to function. It's exhausting and anxiety provoking, I think. But
Yeah, and crazy making. And this was another part that we were going to talk about is like kind of this internal confusion, lack of clarity, like crazy making, and then that also being part of what prevents oftentimes a woman from initiating that conversation, right?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't want him to think I'm too much. I don't want him to think I'm crazy. No, I can't possibly bring that conversation up. Um, yeah, a lot of my work is on helping women figure out how to have that conversation. But honestly, before figuring out how to have it, really dialing in with why you would want to have it. So what I mean is, right? Because there's a lot at stake. There's a lot at stake, especially when you're at a certain point in life and if you have certain expectations or goals for your life, right, and for your future, there is a lot at stake for not having this conversation. So like really like tuning in with yourself around like, okay, well, why like if I'm at a point of even of wanting to or thinking I want to be exclusive with this person, but yet I'm hesitant on having the conversation, let's start with, yeah, what is making me want to go from casually dating this person to exclusively dating them? Like what is helping me like decide I want to attempt to commit to this, right? Or to focus on just them and dating because maybe it feels good surface wise, but when you really dial it down, if you're not willing to have the conversation, do you have enough behind your decision or your thoughts of wanting to date them exclusively? Maybe you keep casually dating some other people because there is there can be so much risk in deciding that you want to behave in a more exclusive manner with someone without having those reassurances that they also want to do the same thing and in the same ways as you. That part too. That part.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that part. That part. Yeah, I'm just so relieved to be 39 and not 22 right now in this
yeah,
conversation.
it's rough. It's
Just
rough out
yeah.
there. And actually, something to mind of a fairly recent conversation that I had with a 20-something-year-old, especially when we were talking about trying to have direct, honest conversations with people, it's particularly rough in, like, the Gen Z set and stuff like that because we know that social skills have taken a bit of a hit generationally there for various understandable reasons, and so the idea like, the fear that arise like, I have heard about arising in, like, that generation around talking to someone else who you are romantically interested in and being like genuine and like a bit vulnerable, it's like it's actually kind of massive, right? And we all naturally as humans have a concern about being rejected or any of that. That is very normal and appropriate. And also, that actually comes with the territory of deciding to engage with other humans. Like I tell people, you don't get to avoid the discomfort of that if you're going to choose to be social in any way, friendships, romantic, whatever, right? It's yeah, comes with it, right? So how do we navigate it? But yeah, so like definitely like the younger set, like even trying to like have these conversations, I think is an added layer. Which I will say that like I do a lot of my work on focusing with women who are mid-30s and beyond. Again, often many of them have children, stuff like that. So back to this idea of the stakes, right? It's like, all right, but you are in this place in life now. So it's you don't quite have as much of the luxury of a 20-something-year-old to not have these conversations with somebody who you are choosing to give your time and energy to in this more focused way. Um,
Mm.
yeah, I think about, like, I'm kind of thinking about, like, in my own life, maybe repercussions of having been in, um, exclusive situations, which quite frankly, I think just immediately jump to, like, a committed relationship type of thing, but before having this exclusivity conversation in any real way, and it was, like I said, it's crazy making, it was anxiety provoking, to just exist in these relationships where I realized that we committed in ways where, like, we moved in together, or we had kids together, or introduced each other to our families, any of these different things, right? But also hadn't, like, clarified certain other aspects of the relationship. So there becomes this real tug of war.
Yeah. Yeah, me too, on the, like, kind of, like, oddity of, like, making all of these steps, like, towards commitment seemingly, but all implicit, not explicit, and just, like, shocking ways of, like, a partner demonstrating commitment implicitly. So
Mm,
me, like, kind of naively assuming, well, if he's doing or saying these things, he must be all in.
right.
But all evasive of the actual explicit agreement around where men frankly do hold their power in current
Mhm.
society. Like the commitment piece is kind of
Yeah,
their source of power.
absolutely.
Um yeah,
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 it and back to the sense of, like, trust, so it's almost like you kind of, end up committing with a certain amount of mistrust or uncertainty. What I'm saying is, like you were saying, like, someone doing certain things that might trigger for you, "Oh, they must be all in because they're doing X, Y, and
yeah.
Z," but they're not being that explicit conversation and agreement, which always leaves this air of a way out, where someone's
Mhm.
like, "I never said, but
Uh,
I never said that," right? And it can go both ways, the man, woman, whoever, but, like, that, right? Again, how can I trust if it's like having, again, we talk about social contracts, but it's like having a legal contract and you never signed the line. Like, you read the agreement. I never signed that though. I never said, but you read the agreement and no, I never signed it. I never signed it. Right. It's that, which doesn't make you feel good, and doesn't help you know how to proceed or navigate, in a situation. So,
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking about some of the examples and like the ways to like the complicated, wild, complex, I'm going to call it crazy because that's reversing the whole like, women are crazy thing. Like
right.
crazy ways of evading that. Like
Mm,
had a partner be like, "Please come move across the ocean to a different country for me and get a job here." But didn't really have the exclusivity conversation.
right.
Like,
Right.
extreme. And, like, another one, the same as what you're saying, like, "Oh, yes, let's do meet the parents. I love
Mhm,
you." Okay,
mhm.
well, we're meeting the parents and saying, "I love you," but we're not talking about exclusivity. It's just wild. And then there's another one I'm thinking of, like he wanted to start off like all exclusive 100% all in the beginning, and
Mhm.
I was like, well, no, not yet. And then once I was ready for that, then like, which is another classic thing where it's like,
Yeah.
oh no, now he's gonna still hold the power there anyway. It's just, yeah,
Yep.
I like the feeling I'm having right now of like, no, they're the crazy ones.
Like, actually, I mean, but to your point of reversing that, right? Rather than as, like, a woman feeling like, "Oh, I'm crazy for bringing this up," it's like, no, it's crazy to, like, exclusively focus on someone without some reassurances. That is wild, actually,
Yeah,
and
Yes.
is actually illogical. That part does not make sense, right? But how we feel about how we'll be viewed or how we're looked at societally by that person, all of these things, that's like oftentimes a driving force for not having the conversation, but it's actually totally illogical not to have the conversation, right? Um,
Yeah.
and to that point of like, I guess this is something that I also try to speak on with women around. I don't want to seem crazy. And it's like asking, well, what would make you seem like too much or crazy by having this conversation? Meaning the timing of it, like, yes, you do want to do some assessment, right? On like, yeah, am I trying to have this exclusivity conversation after, I don't know, 2 dates with a person? Or have we been dating, getting to know each other and having conversation? And so it actually is reasonable. You know what I mean? Like really asking ourselves, what about this from a logical perspective is inappropriate or wild or crazy. And really just checking that so that you don't allow someone to kind of like flip it around or, do any of that. Because again, it's illogical to say, I'm going to focus my time and energy just on you in the, dating realm or the romantic realm without any assurances,
Yep.
right? That doesn't make sense, but we do it all the time. Do it all the time.
Yep. We do it all the time because we gotta be cool girls. We gotta just like be cool. Then you hit your 30s and you're like, well, I'm gonna be a real girl now. Estrogen's going down and the realness is going up.
That part. I do not have the time or patience or energy. And if I'm going to this part too, right? I think that your time, or most people start to view their time as more valuable the older they get for multiple reasons, right? And so if I'm going to give you this, like my time is a currency. Like it is, if I'm giving this to you, I would like, how upset would I be to just feel like I wasted it because I just went in without any, again, like any agreements and without any real understandings about it, right? Like, yeah, my time was a lot cheaper when I was younger. It's true. It is way more pricey now. So come on, like you got to give me something here.
Yeah. And I mean, until about yesterday, women were property in marriage and did not have agency. So, yeah, we're still catching up
Yeah.
with the notion of our value and worth,
Mhm.
um, and the systems that are have been impacting us for millennium. I mean,
Yep, it's
yeah.
true. It is
Oof.
very very true.
Yeah.
And yeah, and because of, of reasons like that, like men, I think yeah, they have a greater idea of the value of their time and energy, I think, than a lot of women do, where it's like, well, you know, I have this to do or that to do. So, and I don't know, maybe that is part of what goes into, some guys not wanting to establish that exclusivity because I mean, it's valuable. I don't know that I want it. I want the benefits of
Mhm.
moving exclusively with someone, but I don't know that I want the, liability of it or the right? And I don't know, right? But that is a very good point societally in terms of generally speaking how women are taught to and told to value their time and energy versus men. It is different.
It is. It is. Yeah. Women are valued for who they're being and men for what they're doing. And so that part plays in massively.
Yeah, yeah. It definitely creates that imbalance in the dating world. And like you mentioned, guys' power is in the commitment piece.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So
Yeah.
here we are.
Yeah. Here we are. Here
But
we are.
so yeah,
Yeah.
I think that I don't know, I'm glad we were able to flesh this out a bit because again, when I think about like working with women, it's one of my like biggest pushes. And one of the biggest challenges I feel that I am trying to help work women through is like why you don't want to just slide into commitments anymore like you did in the past, like we all did in the past, and all had like luxury to. And like I said, I'm like, there's a time and place for like letting all the mess happen so that you can clean it up and like
Yeah.
establish certain things, right? That there's that that is not objectively a problem. It's about when you start really forming ideas of how you want your life to be in the future and all of that, then it puts you in a place to have to make some more deliberate, intentional choices. And that's the things you say yes to and no to and all of that stuff. We get into like vetting dating partners out and stuff like that. But so having like conversations where you're like, again, valuable, like think of anything else that you consider to be valuable. You don't just hand it over to somebody. You're like, let's we need to have some understandings, right? And same thing, same thing. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
And
Maybe it's
yeah, I was just gonna say that it's almost like there's this societal trance, and it's just like, oh, women when we're younger, our value is just all in our youth, so it's like, okay, let's just go out there, use that, enjoy life by attracting through our youth. And then that we start to realize that there's some cheapness to that, and then we start to actually dig into our real value and worth that's beyond that, and it just alters things. And it's also biochemical too, right, in the sense that we lose half our brain cells in puberty, so we're less choosy about partners, don't get them back till our mid 20s. And then I feel like there's like a decade of like repair and like coming out of the trance. Then there's also the trances of like ancestral entanglements
yeah.
and patterns and generational stuff around fidelity and agreements and secrets. So yeah, like you said, you like just go all in, do the best you can, and then you have to like disentangle from all of the stuff you got, like that you learn from your experience.
Right. Right. Exactly that. The learning from the messes, from the experience, from the highs, the lows, all of it.
Yeah, wild. And I'm also just, I think I talked about this last time, but just this age that we're at from an astrological standpoint of the millennials are the Pluto and Scorpio generation. And since Pluto went into Aquarius, it means that Pluto is opposing boomers and squaring millennials. So it's kind of like an end of peak power for boomers and a beginning of peak power for millennials. And then Pluto and Scorpio is about power dynamics. So we're kind of here to really resolve, reconcile these hidden power dynamics that are happening. So here we are.
Yep. Here we are. Here we are. I love it. And I'm always here for the astrological perspective of things. So please always bring that. It helps, get this from all angles.
Mhm.
I think I like the in summary, the reckoning with like power dynamics. That's where we are. We are shifting. I mean, one of the things that like I just recently and just kind of some rebranding stuff, I'm like really putting out the idea that I am helping women date from a more empowered place, more effective and more enjoyable. Like the 3 E's, empowered. Like that's the biggest one for me because I do think there's a lot of disempowerment in dating. I think for people in general and then for women in particular. Where we just give away too much of that power and feel like we don't have it. Because I think what it gets focused on a lot is what is like how men behave and they do this. And it's like that the part that's very true that none of us have control over another person's behavior. And I think acknowledging that makes people feel powerless. But I'm like, you absolutely have control over not just your behavior, but what you entertain, allow, tolerate, right? So back to this idea of like vetting out and, you know, being willing to have bring up exclusivity with someone who you decided or think you may want to just exclusively date. Again, I'm not saying jump to commitment, but just like, hey, let's just go out together and not, entertain going out with other people, all of that, right? But having that conversation and someone not responding in a way that's helpful for you is so important for you to like vet them out. Um, and so yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think about, this conversation for me on a personal level. It's like one of my greatest challenges has been overcoming self-doubt and self-betrayal. And so this like kind of coming out on the other side of a like at least decades long kind of excavation of self-doubt and self-betrayal is just yeah, there's just so much in it, and it's really, I think, um, so much in society sets women up in dating to betray and doubt their basic wants and needs.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of intentional overcoming of that, as you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
100%.
yeah. There's just yeah, one other thing about what you were saying before. I forget how you put it, but about like when you from a family constellations perspective, we would say like when you say yes to life, because you had said something like if you're going to go out there and you're going to be in relationships, you're going to be in a bit of a learning experience.
Yeah.
Like you could just say no, I'm not going to do all of that because it hurts and it's complicated. But in family constellations we would say yeah, but then you're saying no to life. Like
Mm, mm.
you're saying no to the complexity and all the things, but it's like that's saying no to life. Um,
Yeah.
so I think part of this conversation is like skills and navigation around saying yes to life and all that entails.
Right. Yep, what comes with it. Yeah, yeah, speaking to so, yes, it's like you don't get to avoid the discomfort, right, of,
Yeah.
like you said, engaging with life, saying yes to life. It is absolutely gonna come with some bumps and bruises, but the alternative is to say no to life and, deal with the repercussions of that, which oftentimes are what we don't want, right? Whether it's stagnation, boredom, isolation, loneliness, you name it. And so, yeah, we have to, like, get out there and engage, and it comes with, again, not being able to it comes with having to interact with all different, types of people and therefore different experiences and behaviors that we can't ultimately control if it's somebody else, but then it makes us have to be particularly, responsible for ourselves, right? Because there's a lot of, like, giving away our power. "Oh, this person did this thing to me," and obviously, depending on what we're talking about, but, like, especially when it comes to dating, like, did you have to stay? Because 'Cause I'm talking about dating someone. I'm talking about meeting someone, here, there, going on dates with them, deciding to text them, call them, whatever, go out. Like, do you have to keep showing up to that? Or, are you allowing yourself to be put through these things for various reasons? It could be a long list of reasons why I will put up with it. But like if you stop and ask yourself, like, yes, it's frustrating that this person treated you this way, but you have to actually put up with it? That's a big one. It's a big one.
Mm, mm.
So
Yeah, there's so much in that. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
know I'm
Ooh,
I'm like, oh, maybe percolate. I'm gonna literally write it down for another conversation of like the
yeah.
things we put
Something
up with.
yeah, and, like, why we do, and from a constellations perspective, like, different types of entanglements
Mhm.
that these desperate desires to stay in something that doesn't serve us and doesn't feel generative. Yeah, there's a laundry list there.
I think, what I'm jotting down is how and why we give away our power, right? And mentioning entanglements. Yeah, the ways in which it becomes a very, from a psychology perspective, we say like an external locus of control, like all these things are happening to me. And it's not that things are not happening to you, but it is also that you're staying at the party. Maybe it's time to go. Maybe it's time to leave the party, right? So, or not let certain
Mhm.
people into the party. That too. All of these
Yeah.
things. All of these things.
Yes. Yes, I like that one. Yeah. Took me a long time to get to
Oh
that
yeah. Oh
latter
yeah.
one.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah, my
So
parties became, way more exclusive over time, let's say that way, where they went from frat party rager, solo cup to martini glasses, fine crystal. We can't not everyone can use the fine crystal, so that type of deal. Mhm, mhm.
so
So,
good. So good. Yeah. Yeah, you've had quite a journey. It's been so awesome being your friend and hearing about the transformation and yeah. Awesome.
It's been a thing. But yeah, on that note, do you have any other thoughts, anything that you feel like we should throw in here, or are we good to go and kind of can percolate on, this other topic for next time?
Yeah, I think the only other thing that's bubbling up, is, like, maybe, like, my greatest tool for navigating dating differently has been playfulness.
Mm,
And, like, the courage to
mm,
be playful with men and, like, I think there was, like, terror, like, really strong fear around kind of, like, mocking men or making fun of their crazy power things, and then when I started calling it out with playfulness, like,
right.
not like, "I hate you, you're a
Yeah.
bad person," but
Mhm.
just like, "Oh, I see what you're doing here. Okay. Oh, okay." Or like doubling down and like taking the power back by being like, "Okay, so you're acting a little flaky here.
Right.
Okay." Just like
Mhm.
yeah, I
Mhm.
think just as a sort of like yeah, tool for navigating it, like playfulness, levity, and not giving your depth
Yes.
away
Mhm,
too
mhm.
quickly,
Jotting,
which
jotting.
yeah,
Um,
that's
okay. Um, all right. Yes, I like this. I'll be sending an email immediately after this because that's where we store the ideas so that we can pick them up next time. But
awesome.
yeah, I'm liking this back just like that final on empowerment, empowered dating. You became more empowered in your romantic interactions and dating through playfulness. You used
Yeah.
playfulness as part of, yeah, the empowerment piece, which is awesome. So
Mm, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, and I wanna hear more next time too about your shift and, like, what were the greatest things that impacted that shift for you.
yeah, I actually like that because it's gonna really make me think about how breaking that down actually. Yeah, come back with some
Cool.
thoughts. All right. Well, thank you so much, Maddie, for this moment,
Thank
and we will
you.
do this again soon.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Tracy. Talk soon.
Talk soon. Um, Wait, why is it saying end meeting? Wait, was that not? Okay, there we
Let's
go.
record.
Stop.